something. Working together for a win-win solution is about the most exciting adventure I've been on. I urge you to call us with your ideas and projects that you are excited about. You can also call in with a complaint, if you are willing to be coached by me and our Changemaker guests. Call 916-456-5199. As a fledgling radio show, it will be a couple of weeks before we have an open line for you to call and be on the air. However, you can call and leave messages at 916-456-5199 about your projects, and we will be announcing them on the air the following week. Also, if you have a pencil and paper, you might want to keep it close to the radio, so in case you hear of anything interesting that you want to participate in from our guests, you'll be able to write it down and get hold of us. We, our Changemaker guests, and our listeners and myself will be your team for supporting you and taking your first step to turn your complaints into results. Our Changemaker guests today are two men who are committed to making our democracy work. Akif Shabibi, a Palestinian peacemaker, who I think he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize, and David Mandel, an American Jew who has been active for many years in bringing together Mideasterners, Israelis, American Jews, Muslims, and Christians together to get to know each other by baking bread together and creating an environment that encourages generous listening. Now, our first Changemaker, Akif Shabibi, is here in the studio with me. Akif, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Would you please begin by telling us a little bit about how you became involved in bringing people together of differing points of view?
Well, being a Palestinian refugee, I think that put me in a situation where always I need to explain myself, explain my condition, explain the condition of my people, and all the political upheavals that went on in Palestine, Israel, of course, brings out subjects that I am always put on the spot and ask questions. So I think that's basically it. That's what brought me into a position where I feel that I need to work and act and explain to people, and later, of course, after realizing how much suffering people are suffering in my country, and of course, being in this country with a democracy, where we are allowed to speak, where we are allowed to express ourselves and look for solutions, and that brought me into action, actually.
So do you have family in the Mideast still, or?
I do, of course. I am from Jerusalem, and much of my family is there. Although my close family is from West Jerusalem, and we were refugees since 1948, and we are scattered. My brothers and I, my sister, actually are between United States and Egypt and Australia and Kuwait. So we're scattered all over.
Yeah, well, the first time I met you, Akif, you spoke about the time when your wife was pregnant and having a big project then, starting a new family. You want to tell our listeners a little bit about that experience and what that meant for you?
Well, I was a teacher in Jerusalem. I taught chemistry and physics in St. George's School, and that was in 1967 when the 67 war took place and the Israelis took over Jerusalem and the West Bank, and that was at that time my wife was pregnant with our first baby, and the labor started, and there was a curfew. We couldn't walk in the street, so what I did is that I carried a stick with a white flag, hoping if an Israeli soldier sees me, wouldn't shoot. And we went in through back streets to the hospital in order to have the baby there. And luckily, when we came to the hospital, that was the first day there was sterile water available and electricity was back in that building. The days before there was no electricity at all. We just got lucky.
Yeah, so how much longer did you stay in Israel and then Palestine and come back and come here to the United States?
I stayed inside after the Israeli occupation. I stayed a little bit more than a year before I came to the United States. And my wife is an American citizen, so that helped us to get the permission quickly.
Uh-huh. So when you got here and you started being in this country, just thinking about your family and people being interested in you as a Palestinian, you got to talking about your situation, and then how did you move into forming or being in organizations, coming to Jewish meetings, talking with Jewish people, talking to people and speaking?
Well, it went in gradually. In the beginning, I was involved in the Arab community or the Palestinian community in the beginning. We had an organization that called US Omen, which is stands for United States Help for Refugees in the Middle East, and then we formed an organization, charitable organization called Palestine Arab Fund, to help some schools or orphanages in Palestine where the help is not available. And later the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee was formed, and I was a member of it. And then what happened is that a Jewish friend approached me.
How'd you find a Jewish friend?
I think he found me more than I found him. It was.
Is this your friend sitting next to you here?
This is my friend sitting next to me. He approached me actually and asked me to come and talk to them, to his organization, about my suffering, and I did, and that was followed actually by a talk in a synagogue, and I was the first Palestinian ever to talk in a synagogue about the problem, and the reaction was really wonderful, although in the beginning I was worried and practically afraid to go, because supposedly this is the enemy, and I found out that there is big difference between meeting people and the situation in Israel, Palestine. The reception was good, and there was a lot of understanding, and the reaction also was very good, and that encouraged me and made me understand that Palestinians and Jews really can live together and can coexist together in a peaceful way, of course, by recognizing each other and by giving each other the chance to live in peace. And that's why I am active in the Middle East Peace Project now, which aim for that goal.
Yeah, what is this Middle East Peace Project? What has it got going, and what is the goal of your organization?
The Middle East Peace Project believes that the Palestinian-Israeli problems can be solved by negotiation across the table instead of shooting across the border. That's basically it. It recognizes the right of Israel to peaceful existence, but at the same time it recognizes that the Palestinians have the right to have their own country and their own place and their own government, and of course their own peace at the same time. And it also recognizes that the Palestinians have the right to have Jerusalem as part of their state in Palestine, which means that Jerusalem can be shared between the Israelis and the Palestinians.
Mm-hmm. So it might be nice for me to introduce your friend who got you going, giving speeches, and you are a wonderful speech maker, change maker of people, and I'm just so happy to have you here with us today. Now here's David Mandel. David Mandel, who's an attorney here in town and who has been very active. Every place I go, I see him, and I know I'm busy a lot with meetings and things. So, David, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in in projects and especially the Mideast issues.
Well, thanks, Reva. Happy to be here. I grew up in the '60s and was involved in a youth group in my synagogue where the major portion of our activities, at least as much as being involved in religious kinds of things, was being involved in struggling for social action and peace. We were very involved in the civil rights movement, both supporting things that were going on in other parts of the country and in the Chicago area where I grew up, and also in protesting against the Vietnam War. That was my background. I finished high school. I wanted to get away for a while. I went to live in a kibbutz for a year in Israel.
And tell our listening audience what a kibbutz is.
Kibbutz is, at that time, was a collective farm in Israel. They've changed quite a bit, become less rural and less collective, but it was a community of several hundred people living collectively on a farm, and it's a very
where they share everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a kibbutz about a year ago for a conference and a reunion of my family. And the kibbutz I was on, their business now is hotel and recreation. And it was a very nice conference center and a swimming place, and it was great. And it's a lot of fun.
That's typical of some of the changes that have happened in Israel since I first went there 30 years ago or so. Anyway, I spent a year there. Afterwards, I went back and lived in Israel for another 10 years. And with my background, it didn't take long to see that there were some real problems in that society there. There's some real injustices that had occurred and been visited on the Palestinian people who, to a large extent, were displaced by the creation of Israel. And this was at a time when I first went there and when I was living there back in the 70s and 80s, at a time when many Palestinians absolutely would not recognize in any form the legitimacy of Israel, and most Israelis wouldn't recognize that there was even such a thing as Palestinians, let alone Palestinians with some rights. So it was at a time where just getting together and talking between Israelis and Palestinians, which I was very involved in while living there, was...
Now, how did you get together with groups of Palestinians in Israel? I mean, were there groups formed already?
Oh, there were definitely groups. I mean, there were Palestinians in the territories and in Israel itself who were fighting for their civil rights and for their national rights, and I was involved with Israeli groups that were engaged in supporting them and in fighting against the Israeli government policies at the time, and which unfortunately have continued. So when I came back to Sacramento to live about almost 15 years ago, I wanted to continue to be involved in this issue and to work with the peace and justice community here and with the Jewish community and with Palestinians. And so I sought out people to be involved with in working on educational projects and in supporting the continuing struggle for peace and justice.
How was it for you, in the Jewish community, speaking for Palestinian rights? Was that a popular topic when you first started, or how has it been? What's it been like for you?
Well, it's been mixed. I think that many American Jews at that time, 10, 15 years ago, were much less willing to hear about it than they are now. I think we've come a long way since then. There were times that it was very difficult to get a hearing in the mainstream Jewish community that's controlled by certain leaders. I think when we had meetings and educational sessions in discussion groups in synagogues, for instance, like the one that Akif just referred to, there was a lot of openness to listening. There was also disagreement, but there was a real need to confront the issue. I think people were beginning even then to realize that when there's a conflict, there's real basis for it. There are competing and conflicted interests, but if you want to make peace, which I think most people do, you have to do that by talking to your enemy. You can't do it just by talking to your friends, and even worse, by trying to pretend that your enemy doesn't exist, which was going on to a large degree then. But I think more and more since then, there's been openness, and that's been one of the great things of the so-called peace process of the last 6 or 7 years, that there's no question now that Palestinians and Israelis recognize each other and that they need to talk to each other in order to solve the problem. There's still a lot of difficulties along the way, and that the peace is very far from being achieved, which is one of the problems that our group has now in addressing the public is that people seem to think, oh, there's a peace process, that the press talks about it like that, problem solved, we don't need to worry about it anymore. And that, unfortunately, that's far from the truth.
What makes that far from the truth? I mean, if people here in this community have some ideas about how they might solve the problem or some ideas, is there any place for those ideas to go? You know, does our government listen to ideas from our public? What do you?
I think they listen, but not very much. They listen when they have to, and the louder the public can speak, the more they'll listen. So it's really important for people to speak out whenever they can. The problem is that the Palestinians have been and remain in a very, very weak position relative to Israel in particular and to the other countries in the region. They don't really have their own state. The territory that they control is still very much under the heel of Israel, and it's not anywhere near the kind of situation where they can have real independence and really control their own destiny. Israel is still very much in control of the occupied territories and doesn't seem inclined to give that up. And I think it needs to be brought to the attention of the public throughout the world, and including here, and American Jews, that while you can continue to try to oppress a people, and maybe you can have some material gain and power along the way doing it, if Israel really wants to have peace, that's only going to happen if the Palestinians have justice and have their own rights to independence alongside Israel.
Okay. Anything gets triggered with you, Akif, in this discussion that's just been taking place that you'd like to add to?
Well, I can actually repeat the same thing. If the Palestinians did not have a just solution and a state of their own, where there is some kind of continuity, where the land is not partitioned into small few square miles, then they can function as a state and they can improve their own conditions, and that's the only way to get a right peace in the area.
Mm-hmm. So what about people in this community? Any way that you would like people to become involved here in this community with you and the Mideast Peace Project? Anything going on in town that they can help with, or actions that they can take that can be, you think, might be useful?
Well, people are welcome to get in touch with us. I can give my phone number and Akif's phone number are the usual ones we use for contacts if people would like to get involved in the Mideast Peace Project. Akif's number is 961-2004, or mine is 446-5066.
Would you repeat it one more time, both of them?
Sure. Akif's number 961-2004, and my number 446-5066. We have we do as many activities as we have the energy to organize. We had a couple of speakers from Jerusalem just this past weekend, so it's too late to dwell on that. People missed it, but it was taped by the public access television, and it will be on. I don't know the schedule, but in the next weeks or months, I'm sure it will be on. So if people listen for it,
and we might
even
be able to get that get a tape of that and put it on this show too.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're in a few seconds. We're going to be taking a break, and we'll be gone for about 3 minutes, and there'll be some nice commercials on and promos, and make sure you come on back, and we'll continue talking to David and Akif about what is going on in this community. Akif is A-K-E-F, Akif, and David is D-A-V-I-D.
This is The Voice.
Italian is the language of music. Classical, jazz, rock, or pop are all annotated with words like allegro, legato, and adagio. There's a reason for that. Italy is music's mother lode. If you're in the mood for the great sounds of Italy and Italian America, your only source is Sacramento Italian Style, with the Radio Paisani, Phyllis Cuparo, Joe D'Ambrosio, and me, Bob Mazzullo.
Hello, Sacramento. This is Todd Michaels. Join me right here on Sunday nights at 6 for a look back at all the radio hits we grew up with. From 75 to 95, it's The Vault, the biggest collection of pop hits anywhere around. I'll spin yesterday today, plus report facts and features about the recording acts who made the top 40, and read letters from you. That's The Vault, Sunday nights at 6, right here on 91.5 The Voice and Cable FM 88.7. That's Sunday nights at 6, The Vault. I'll talk to you then.
Jason died in a car accident on April 3rd, 95. I thought right away about donating his organs. He said to me, "Mom, if anything ever happened to me, you should donate all my organs."
Share your decision to become an organ and tissue donor with your family today.
I feel very happy that he decided this.
Organ and tissue donation. Share your life. Share your decision. Call 1-800-355-SHARE for a free brochure. A message from the Advertising Council and the Coalition on Donation.
Do you have dreams?
Do you have goals?
Everyone does.
No matter what race or color they are.
Talk to each other.
Listen to each other.
Sure, we're all different.
But we're also all the same.
Understand the similarities.
Respect the differences.
Help end prejudice in your lifetime. Call 1-800-934-3430 or log on to www.whitehouse.gov. Together we can build one America in the 21st century. Brought to you by the President's Initiative on Race, the Leadership Conference Education Fund, and the Ad Council.
It began in 1986. In 1988, Access Sacramento brought you round-the-clock community radio. In 1997, Sacramento's voice is heard worldwide on the Internet. In May of 1998, Access Sacramento expands the community voice again. Stay tuned as we usher in a new era in Sacramento radio. Access Sacramento and The Voice, Sacramento's community cable radio, Internet, and something more.
You are tuned to the Voice of Sacramento, the community-use cable radio station where you create and produce your own radio programs. Access Sacramento empowers Sacramento County residents through technical training and assistance. Visit us at the Coloma Community Center at 4623 T Street, Sacramento, California. Funds for the operation of this channel are provided in part by the Sacramento Metropolitan Cable Television Commission. Questions or comments may be addressed to the Commission at 828 I Street, Sacramento, California, 95814. Reach the Commission by telephone at area code 916-440-6661.
Sacramento's community radio, The Voice.
Action callers. And our hostess with the mostest, Diane Matar, couldn't hold it in, and she's been listening, and she has a question to ask and a comment to make to me and our guests. And so here's Diane.
And would you, Reva, please reintroduce our guests so the callers that just turned in know what we're talking about today and what the exciting topic is.
Yeah, great. Thanks for reminding me you are a great hostess and remember those kinds of things. So, yes, you are back on Action Callers, and today our guest changemakers are Akif Shabibi and David Mandel, who are part of the Sacramento Mideast Peace Project, and they're here talking about their personal activities that they do with the organizations and how they got onto being activists here in this community and what it takes. And if any of you want to join them, please give them a call, and they'll give you their number again a little bit later to call. And right now, Diane is just biting at the bit to make some comments about things that she's heard them say. And in a couple of weeks, we will have it possible for you to call in, you, the listeners out there, and you can call in a couple of weeks when we'll have our telephones all set up for telephone calls. So here's Diane.
Great. Hi. I was, very interestingly listening to our guests today, talking about what the Jewish people and the Palestinians are doing in our community. And I was interested in what all of us could do possibly in our community in Sacramento, because we're such a diverse community made up of all cultures and all religions. And we need to learn how to, live together. And this isn't just something that's happening over in Israel and Palestine. This is something that's happening here in our community. So I was looking for some ideas of what they would suggest that you and I would do, and how we might get involved in the community, and what areas are available to, if it's educate ourselves or become familiar with the things, or how it relates. If we can help with achieving peace in the Middle East, how would that assist us here in Sacramento?
You know, Diane, it reminds me of the first time I went to the first meeting of Arabs and Jews and Christians down in Los Angeles. I had found a poster one day saying a new way of thinking, bringing together the people from the Mideast. And I went down to that program, and I was frightened to death. I had never met any Arabs. I had never met any Palestinians. I had never met anybody from Syria or Lebanon. And, you know, I was really afraid because I was looking for bombs, you know, under the seats. And I found out during the meeting where we were all learning to talk with each other and get to know each other that the Arabs and the Palestinians were also looking under their seats, and they were wondering if they were safe. And there was such fear. This was about 10 or 15 years ago. There was such fear of getting together. And what I found out was that Jews and Palestinians and Arabs are, cousins. You know, we're all descendants of Abraham. And so I did find so many things that we had in common. And so I really encourage all of you, and I'm going to tell you about a meeting that's going to happen in a few weeks here in the Jewish community, and you might all want to attend. So, okay, so David, she asked her question and I interrupted, and you're ready to go.
That's okay. I hear two parts in that question. One is about just getting to know each other better in Sacramento. We're living in the United States, a very multicultural society, and one in which there's plenty of room for people getting to know each other's cultures better, to appreciate them and celebrate them. What can we do to make that work better? I would say, well, if you're a part of any particular community, talk to the other members of it and about inviting someone from another community that you don't know much about to come speak to you, or getting together with a parallel group of another community. Perhaps if you're a teacher, invite some folks to come into your classroom and talk about their experiences that would be different from what most of your students might know. Or if you're a parent, encourage your kids' teachers to do that kind of thing. There's plenty of room for that kind of cross-cultural education on a person-to-person level, which I think is really important. Of course, on the wider community level, we have to be very sure that we have a united stand, that we won't tolerate any kind of racism or bigotry or attacks on any ethnic group or any other type of group for that matter. And it's important for people to be involved in those kinds of struggles, and things like that have occurred in the last several years against...
last few months.
Against Jews and others, and we really need to make sure that we stand shoulder to shoulder on that kind of thing. The other part of your question, how would peace in the Middle East help us here? Well, the world is much more and more an interdependent place, whether we like it or not. And it's there in any place where there's a flashpoint of a danger of a serious conflict happening has ramifications in the rest of the world, and that's true in any part of the world. And it's really important that Americans become more aware of things that are happening in other countries. I think Americans are incredibly unaware for the most part, and really not that interested. And I think it's important that we all become more interested.
We're ready for a break.
The Voice is 88.7 Cable FM and KYDS 91.5 FM Sacramento.
And we're back on Action Callers, and now I see Akif Shabibi is ready to say something to us. So here's Akif.
Well, we have to realize one thing very important, that this problem, Palestinian-Israeli problem, is not foreign to us. The United States has been involved and still is involved and will be involved in the future in it. We dump billions of dollars over there. We sell arms too bad to everybody over there and help them fight instead of help them live with each other. And I think it's time for the United States, and in reality, United States is starting to take a more balanced position between the Palestinians or Arabs and the Israelis. And a result of that is some peace agreements, although they are not perfect peace agreements and they didn't realize much until now, but they can realize much. So we as Americans are involved, and we have to realize that we have to participate, we have to know. And if we don't know, education is very important. There is nothing that can help a government take a wrong position than the ignorance of the people. And we as people have to learn what is the situation there and what we should do. And as an individual, I can call different organizations, I can ask for help. The Middle East Peace Project can supply you with speakers, can supply you with videotapes or any kind of teaching material that you need. Just ask and you will be answered. And we are here to spread the information as much as we can.
Yeah, that I think it's a good segue into this speech that's coming up in at B'nai Israel. B'nai Israel is spelled B''N''A', Israel, Israel. And there's going to be a Marcia Freeman from Israel is going to be speaking Friday, March 17th at an evening service at B'nai Israel. And that's located at 3600 Riverside Drive, just across the street from Land Park. That was the building that was fired upon a few months ago. And she's coming to speak, and I'd like to say what the brochure says to you, and a little bit about what she's going to speak about. And it's being this is being a project that is being sponsored by the Social Action Committee at B'nai Israel, and they're being co-sponsored by Hadassah and the Jewish Civic Action Network, the Jewish Community Relations Council, and the Middle East Peace Project. And so this is what it says about what's going on and what Marcia Friedman is going to speak about. It says, now that military threats to Israel's security have been greatly reduced because of the ongoing peace process, Israeli society is beginning to show the strains of the diversity of its citizenry. The country is increasingly distracted by its complex weave of internal conflicts. They have new immigrants, they have the very religious, and then they have those who aren't religious. They have people who have lived there for a long time and were born there. They have Jewish and Palestinian, they have female and male, gay and straight, black and brown, white, black, and they have the haves and the have-nots. While the diversity of the population is one of the triumphs of the Zionist idea, immigration of Jews from all parts of the world, it is also a major challenge to the Israeli democracy. Overt official discrimination and social prejudice fragment and polarize Israeli society, causing tension and distrust. Israel's minority and otherwise disadvantaged communities are strongly voicing their frustrations and demands, challenging Israel to truly become a government of all its citizens. Israel's ultimate response will gauge the quality of its commitment to democratic principles. And Marcia Friedman, who was going to be giving that talk, immigrated to Israel from the United States in 1967 and was a member of the Knesset, Israel's parliament, from 1973 to 1977 for the citizens' rights movement. She was a lone voice for women's issues. She raised concerns that had never been spoken of publicly in Israel before. And it goes on about her, and she's been very active, and she's been living She's been dividing her time between Berkeley and Jerusalem. So go to this. It's Friday, March 17th. It sounds like it should be a very exciting program. The phone number, if you got your pencil, 446-4861, and that's area code 916. So call B'nai Israel and find out about it and show up during the services at 8 o'clock at B'nai Israel. So, again, what's coming up for you when you heard about her and about Marcia Friedman? Are you looking forward to that presentation?
Yeah, I am. I've known Marcia a long time back. When I was living in Israel, she was a member of Knesset, involved in the politics and the peace movement there, and also she founded the Women's Party, which did not succeed in getting elected. So I've known her, seen her on and off since then, and I think she has a lot to say about the changes going on in Israeli society, which is a little bit different from what we were talking about before. That brochure you read starts with a statement that Israel is now more secure because of the ongoing peace process, and I think that's true. Israel does not face today very much of an external threat, certainly much less than it did at certain times in the past, and therefore some of the contradictions and difficulties in Israeli society are coming more to the fore. So that'll be an interesting discussion. It doesn't detract from the fact that the peace process itself is in deep trouble, particularly as far as the Palestinians are concerned. So far, they're the ones who are still getting the short end of the stick and continuing to live.
In what way, David, do you feel they're getting the short side of the stick or the short end of the stick?
Well, at the very best, the Palestinians control only the day-to-day domestic issues in a small part of the occupied the territories that Israel has occupied since 1967, the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Only about 40% of the West Bank is controlled by Palestinians, and even there, it's broken up into little isolated islands that are still subject to domination by Israel. They have no way of developing economically the way that they're set up. Israel could step in at any time and militarily and re-enter them. They're surrounded by Israeli settlements that have been proliferating in the last decade in that whole area, and by these new gigantic bypass roads that Israel is building to connect the settlements to each other, but also to separate the Palestinian communities from each other. So even within these communities where there's day-to-day control, they're very isolated, and it just doesn't form a basis for a kind of national existence that could possibly give the Palestinians the feeling that they have achieved their own independence and their own and justice that would put them on a par with Israel, and which is the only way that Israel is really going to achieve peace, in my opinion, is by having the Palestinians to achieve that kind of independence.
Great. Akif, you have something that you quickly would like to say before?
The peace process created some kind of euphoria for a while because everybody was happy. Everybody thought that's the end of the problem, especially the Palestinians, because of the last suffering. They thought that now that's the end of the road. And in reality, what happened was the opposite. The average income of a Palestinian in the occupied territory now is less than when the peace treaty was signed. The areas that the Palestinians control, just like David said, is still partitioned into small parcels, and those parcels are always subjected to be cut between each other, and Palestinians cannot move freely between those different parcels. So the Palestinian entity still was not realized, and it's time to do that.
Yes, thanks, Akif. We are ready for another break. These breaks just keep interfering with our conversation, but we got to do it. So here comes our break for a couple of minutes, and be right back.
Sacramento, the voice is your radio station.
Hello, Dave Carr for Radio DX to tell you about this show which airs live Mondays 6 to 8 in the evenings and a replay Tuesday mornings from 6 to 8 a.m. here on KYDS 91.5 and Cable FM 88.7, the voice of Sacramento. So join me for music and Lord knows what else. And check out the website, www.w3dj.com/radiodx. Check it out, would you?
Why is it we never hear about the good things kids do?
Stories. Two teenagers are accused of drug-related...
The newspaper reports show that 65% of adults have a negative opinion of teenagers. A shootout downtown leaves 4 teenagers dead today.
It's time for teenagers to get noticed for doing something right. Get involved in crime prevention in your community. Tutor, mentor, volunteer. And let's start proving everybody wrong by doing something right. Call 1-800-722-TEENS.
A public service message brought to you from the Crime Prevention Coalition of America, the U.S. Department of Justice, and the Ad Council.
Here's the throw to third. Williams with the tag. O'Neal's safe.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah?
Do you remember when we were talking about raising academic standards in our kids' schools?
Yeah?
Well, I called and I got this booklet. It's got a lot of helpful information in there. Here.
Hey, thanks, man.
If education is important to you, talk to your child's school about raising academic standards. Call 1-800-3823-SMART for a free booklet and be a big league parent.
Hey, I'll see you.
Hey, Paul, that's the wrong way.
I know, but I forgot to drop one off at second base.
Brought to you by the Education Excellence Partnership and the Ad Council.
You are tuned to the voice of Sacramento, Cable FM 88.7, and on the air at FM 91.5. This program is produced through the use of facilities and services of Access Sacramento. We're located in the Coloma Community Center at 4623 P Street, Sacramento, California. Reach us by telephone at area code 916-456-8600 or visit our website at www.sacramento.org. Local community broadcasting from Sacramento's Voice and Access Sacramento, making a difference one voice at a time.
Now you can listen longer. Access Sacramento expands its worldwide internet service. Point your web browser to www.sacramento.org. Access our rural audio feed now from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday Pacific Coast time. Brought to you in part by Sacramento Network Access and the Access Sacramento Media Lab. For more information, call area code 916-456-8600. Internet radio from Access Sacramento, making a difference one voice at a time.
For a different listening experience, 88.7 Cable FM and KYDS 91.5, the voice you need to hear.
Welcome back to Action Callers. This is Dr. Reva Camiel, and you're here with my guests, Akif Shabibi and David Mandel from the Sacramento Mideast Peace Project. And they're telling us about some of the things that are important to know about these days in Sacramento and in Israel-Palestine. So I'd like to, looks like Akif has more to share with us, and I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say at this point.
Well, I like to say that the community in general in Sacramento received us in a good way. One of the highlights of our work with the Middle East Peace Project was getting the artworks of 24 artists, 12 Palestinian and 12 Israeli artists, and we had them exhibited in a gallery downtown for a whole month, and we ended it with a big dinner, and it was received very nicely among the Arab and the Israeli and the Jewish community, in addition to general community of Sacramento. So the reception is there, except that sometimes we lack the right publicity tools, and with
So you need a good publicist?
We need a publicist.
Okay, if there's a publicist out there in this audience, please let us know. What number should they call, Akif?
Well, the numbers, as I'm repeating the same numbers David said, 961-2004-446-5066. Again,
And that's area code 916.
Area code 916. The numbers are 961-2004 and 446-5066. and we appreciate any call, and we are ready to supply you with any material you need.
David, something come up for you that you want us to know about, and any experiences that you've had? Any have you been part of any other kind of community action in your life?
Oh, lots of things, sure.
Lots of things.
But I have focused a great deal of my public involvement on this issue over the last few years, 15 years since I've been back in this country, because it's something that I lived to such an intense degree when I was living in the Middle East for a long time, and it's something that I know a lot about, and it's very, very dear to my heart and very important to me. I think one thing we have had trouble is getting the established media to pay attention to the fact that number one, that there is still a serious ongoing problem that needs more addressing in the Middle East. As I mentioned, there's just this illusion that, well, there's a peace process and they're talking and they've had some agreements and they'll have some more agreements, so everything is fine. In reality, that's really not true. And as I agree very much with Akif when he said that our government, the United States, is to a large degree responsible for that, for failing to push for a real peace agreement that addresses the needs of both peoples, and for seeming to be more interested in profiting from arms sales than in securing oil supplies, perhaps, or controlling oil supplies. They're not even needed very much by this country, but we want to control them, everybody else's access to them. That seems to be much more of a consistent motive than the true interests of the people there who really desperately need peace and justice.
Yeah, sometimes I've heard some people talk about the beautiful garden that could be developed by Israel and the Palestinians working together and creating a whole new industry, and could do some fantastic things, because Palestinians are a very well educated people. Some of them are great farmers and educated in many kinds of ways, and we could have a fantastic Mideast there, it would seem to me.
I agree with you. I think you're right. Potential is definitely there.
Akif?
I think if we both cooperated as Palestinians and Israelis, we can really create a very prosperous state. Do you imagine how much money, how much effort goes into military instead of going into social and industrial and economic activity? All that, if it is poured in the right direction, can create really a good state. Palestine is not a very big country, and it's about 1/15 the area of California, and that can tell you how much we can do in it with the sources available. But all those sources now are being wasted into protection, because of the fear. Both parties are afraid of each other. Israel is afraid of the Palestinians, and Palestinians are afraid of the Israelis, and that doesn't help anybody, and that doesn't help the country being developed. And eventually it can destroy both. It destroyed already the Palestinian economy, and it can eventually destroy the Israeli economy, because it cannot go on forever like that. And Israel cannot depend on billions of dollars coming from the United States forever. Eventually the United States people will say, hey, until when we're going to pay that? So we have to agree to a peaceful agreement, and we have to start really recognizing that we cannot have the whole cake. Everybody has to compromise.
I heard a speaker the other day talking about how the Palestinian state has been set up in this peace process that's going on now, in terms of that there isn't a contiguous, where there isn't like one whole Palestine. It's divided up into like little islands, and where freeways and roads and security roads are kind of crisscrossing between all the Palestinian parts of the country. Is that true, and is that happening?
Yeah, that's right. It's what I was referring to before. There's not a Palestinian state yet. To correct one thing you said, the leadership has held off on declaring a state because they've been pressured immensely by the United States and European community that if they did that, it might alienate Israel and cut off the peace talks. So there still is no state. There's a Palestinian Authority, which is very weak and has had very little choice but to agree to some of the terms dictated by Israel, which so far has included maintaining of dozens of settlements throughout the West Bank and Gaza, some of which are not just little hilltop settlements, but really big cities that are continuing to grow at a very fast pace. There are close to 400,000 Israelis living in the territories that have been occupied since 1967.
How many Palestinians live in that part of the country that have 400,000 Israeli citizens?
About 2 million total between the West Bank and Gaza Strip. Plus, there are millions of other Palestinians who are outside of that area who, for the most part, who were forced at one time or another to leave their country, who many of whom would like to return at least to part of it, hopefully under some kind of future peace agreement. So there's a lot of it's not a shortage of space. There's plenty of room if people develop in an intelligent and peaceful way, and perhaps even some of the settlers could stay. The Palestinian Authority has said if they agree to live in a Palestinian state. But the way it is now, as you stated, Reva, is that these little islands of the Palestinian towns and cities are divided up, so it's even hard to get from one to the other because there's this big wide road that's several hundred yards wide with everything around it cleared, that's meant not only to connect one Israeli settlement to another, but to cut off the Palestinian areas from the other. And it's hard to visualize this without a map, but if you look at a map of the West Bank, right in the center, going from east to west around Jerusalem, there's almost a solid wall of Israeli settlements that are dividing the West Bank in two. One thing we can do and would be really happy to do, and I'd like to repeat Akif's offer, is to come speak to any groups in town that would like to invite us. We have not just Akif and I, but also other Palestinians, other Israelis, others who are neither, who are involved in this, who are quite knowledgeable about the situation and who can come with these maps and with their own stories of their own individual histories and with their own points of view, and address your group if you would be interested in inviting us. And if a school, a university, religious congregation, some kind of community group, anybody who would like to get in touch, we'd be happy to come speak to you and help you learn and share with us our feelings and have an open discussion. There's a lot that we agree on, but there are things that even within the Middle East Peace Project we have different perspectives. Akif and I come from very different histories, for instance, and there are things that we disagree about as well. But we agree on the basic outline of what needs to happen for there to be a true peace, and we would love to come share that with you.
So that's a good kind of action, I think, in terms of people don't have to start a new organization or join an organization. They can just invite you over and bring some of your slides and some of your handouts and things like that, and they can have other speakers too on this subject from very different points of view too.
Yeah, I like to just present a small image of what happened to some Palestinians. If two villages are close to each other, like Sacramento, East Sacramento, and Rancho Cordova, you can drive in a straight line, and it is like 3-4 miles. But a Palestinian, because there is a freeway in the middle, will have to go through Highway 80 to Citrus Heights, to Orangevale, to Folsom, in order to come back and enter Rancho Cordova. That's exactly what happens between different Palestinian areas.
The way it's set up now.
The way it is set up now. And Palestinians try to avoid the checkpoints of the Israeli army between different Palestinian areas because it depends on the officer's mood. He can pass some people and he can turn back some people. There is no rule, sometimes there is no any kind of threat, yet they can turn back some Palestinians, they can allow some.
It sounds like kind of if they're going to use those islands, so to speak, that it's a setup for failure and for more wars and for more unless something really is built in to make those roads available for everybody. And what do you think about that, David?
I couldn't agree with you more. And as I've said, this really runs contrary to what I believe is the true interests of the Israeli people and everyone who's a friend of Israel throughout the world, because Israel's not going to achieve a lasting peace unless the Palestinians have justice. What Akif said applies even more so when it comes to Jerusalem. Palestinians from other parts of the West Bank can't get into Jerusalem without permits, and the Palestinian Jerusalem is a dying city, we were told this weekend, because it's been cut off so much from the West Bank.
It sounds like we're building some more ghettos, similar to what we have in this society.
One hopeful note, there was a really great statement calling for a shared Jerusalem that's about to be published in some of the major press, signed by more than 300 American rabbis, which we have copies of, and if somebody wants, we'd be happy to send them one, and that could be a real good basis for discussion as well.
Great. Thanks, David, and thank Akif and for being here and sharing so many of your wonderful acts to our planet. And now I'd love it if you, Akif, and myself had a discussion about, well, more discussions and more creative thinking. So today has been the first time Action Callers is live on radio. In a couple of weeks, we will be trained in using the open phone lines. If you want to get in touch with us after today's show, please just leave a phone message for our guests, or for me, Reva Camiel, and we'll get back to you within a couple of days. So, looking forward to hearing from y'all.